And the river still shines and shimmers in the light as it did in our grandfather's day, when they rode all night to fish in the morning and lived in Willapa Bay.
Hey, good. Yeah, no. Thank you very much for that mercy applause right there, sir. Everybody else felt guilty, and they haven't even done anything yet, but I guess we'll clap for them anyway. So, but that's the way to get warmed up. We got a fun show lined up for you. Got some great Fisher poets, some music for you. I'm Ron McDaniel. So if you've not been to Fisher Poets before and you think, holy smokes, we're in the wrong place, that guy is not a fisherman. There's a story behind that. If you're here late enough tonight, you'll hear that. But with me is a fisherman, and she's also a small animal veterinarian in Soldotna, Alaska. And so if you would please welcome my MC and great friend, Meezie Hermansen. So we're gonna guide you into port tonight. We've got some great storytellers. Before we introduce the first one, all right, a couple of things. If you enjoy what you hear, and you're going to, let them know, right? Don't be afraid to give some raucous applause. We've got KMUN that's sending this thing out all over the world through the internet somehow. I don't understand any of that. And then we've got Brad that's putting this out on YouTube right now as we speak. And so people are watching on YouTube. And so let them know that you're supporting these poets, these singers. Last announcement that I have, and then Meezie, I'll turn it over to you. There is the umpteenth annual on-site poetry contest tomorrow night. And you do not have to have performed up on stage. It's for anybody. As long as you have your button and you have a poem that meets the criteria I'm going to share, you can get up on stage and you can enter the contest. And it's a ball. It's a great chance for you to try your own poetry chops. So here's the rules. We'll repeat them several times tonight. But it can be no more than 30 seconds long. And they'll flag you out if it's longer than 30 seconds. So it's got to be tight. It must include the words full moon. The first and last lines are the same but different. Include 3 Bodie prepositions, locator words, okay? You English teachers or people who paid attention in school know what I'm talking about. The rest of us need examples like this. Examples are abeam, astern, aboard, aft, to starboard, to port. So 30 seconds, got to include full moon. First and last lines the same but different. Include 3 Bodie prepositions. And we'll repeat that some more tonight. Thank you for being here. Nevada is our sound guy. I think we sound great. Thanks for Nevada. Give him a big round of applause. And now Meezie's going to introduce our first Fisher poet.
Hello, everybody. So nice to be back in Astoria. I think we should just get rolling. And so I'm going to introduce our first performer. We've got Jefferson, Holland, and he's come from a ways away. He's from Annapolis, Maryland on the Chesapeake. And he's going to do some great music for us. Jefferson.
What a thrill to be here. I'm just very excited. So I'm from Annapolis, Maryland. I'm a former river keeper for the Weston Road Rivers just south of Annapolis. I'm a former assistant harbor master for the city of Annapolis. I launched the Annapolis Maritime Museum, so all that kind of fun stuff. But I'm actually from the little neighborhood across the harbor from Annapolis proper. And it's called Eastport. And it's a little peculiar. It's where all the watermen live. Watermen's what we call fishermen back there in the Chesapeake Bay. So this little waterman's village is where black women, black and white families live side by side, working out on the water. And it's kind of the funky over across the tracks kind of place. And them Eastport boys got this odd tradition when the sun swings to its equinoxial position. They build a little fire down along the docks. They doff their shoes and they burn their winter socks. Yes, they burn their socks at the equinox. You might think that's peculiar, but I think it's not. See, they're the same socks they put on last fall, and they never took them off to wash them, not at all. So they burn their socks at the equinox in a little old fire burning nice and hot. Some think incineration is the only solution, because washing them contributes to the Chesapeake's pollution. So through the spring and the summer and into the fall, they go around not wearing any socks at all, just stinky bare feet stuck in old deck shoes, whether out on the water or enjoying a brew. So if you sail into the harbor on the 21st of March, and you smell a smell like Limburger mixed in with the laundry starch, you know you're downwind of the Eastport docks, where they're burning their socks. Another fun job I had was a PR guy for the famous Annapolis boat shows. And this is something that's been going on for 50 years. And the whole harbor gets taken over by floating docks and boats from all over the world. And people come from all over the world. And the opening day of the show is always VIP day. And one year we had an actual VIP show up. It was Martha Stewart. She came in with her entourage and swept down to the Hinckley dock. Saw this beautiful 50-foot long picnic boat, jet tried, mahogany everywhere, antique. And the dealer showed her around the boat, and they sat down in the cockpit and said, okay, I'll take it. She had one of her entourage write a check, and she signed it and handed it over to the clerk and said, okay, I'll have my man come over on Monday after the show and pick it up. And the fellow said, oh, no, ma'am, you don't understand. These boats are built to order. And I have 8 other customers to build their boats for before I get around to building yours. Well, how long will that take? Well, I could probably deliver it sometime in September. I said, young man, do you know who I am? I said, yes, ma'am. You're number 9. Well, outside of the Annapolis Maritime Museum is an old oyster shucking house called the McNasby Oyster Company building. And that's where everybody in the summertime goes chicken necking. Do you do that around here? Chicken necking? It's where you tie a chicken neck around a string and you lower it down over the dock and you wait patiently for a crab, and this is a blue crab in the Chesapeake Bay. Come along and snack onto it, and you lift it up and scoop it up with a long pole net and dump it in a bucket. And that's chicken necking. And on Back Creek is where the McNasby building is. And that's where this song is located. Curiously, it's called Back Creek Crab. I'm gonna get my bucket and a chicken neck, an old piece of string and a long pole net. I'm going down to Back Creek, I'm gonna get me some crabs. I'm going down to Back Creek, sit on a pier, dangle my line while I sip on a beer. Going down to Back Creek, I'm gonna Back Creek crab. Get me some big fat males, let the little ones go. If they scuttle from the bucket, they can bite you on the toe. Hard crabs, soft crabs, even the shedders. Take 'em home and eat 'em, the sooner the better. I don't need a knife and I don't need a mather, just a Back Creek crab to satisfy my palate. Going down to Back Creek, I'm gonna Back Creek crab. Ba-da-dee. Join in. You know the words. Good job. Give me some Back Creek crab, put 'em on a simmer. I can eat the about 1,100 dozen for dinner. Jimmy back creek crab and a little old bay over Chateaubriand any old day. I don't need a knife and I don't need a mallet, just a Back Creek crab to satisfy my palate. Going down to Back Creek, I'm going to Back Creek crab. Whoa, 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 whoa. Going down to Back Creek, I'm going to Back Creek crab. One time I was performing and Jimmy Dean showed up in the audience. I was like, oh, Jimmy Dean. It's amazing. He was there on his yacht there in the harbor. And I always admired his Big John song. And I thought, I'd love to do a Big John song, but the only real Big John kind of hero we had was a guy named Muskrat Green from a little town south of Annapolis called Deal. And Deal, first you have to go from Annapolis to Edgewater to London town to Deal. Oh, no, Shady Side and is in between. So he was famous for chugging raw shucked oysters. Put them in a big quart bell jar and just go, go. And he entered all of the oyster eating contests and won every single one of them. So there was this legendary man from the town of Deal with a heart of gold and guts of steel. To eat a lot of oysters was his only dream. They called him Muskrat Green. As a little bitty baby weighed just 2 pounds, but he grew to be the biggest water man around. At 5'6", he weighed 235 with a belly twice as big as any man his size. He was a hard-eating, hard-driving waterman, but his appetite for oysters got a mite out of hand. At an oyster-eating contest, nobody could beat him. They said, they can't shuck 'em fast as I can eat 'em. He won every eating contest on the whole East Coast. He could chug a quart of raw ones like a cocktail toast. After eating 300 in a minute, 5 seconds, he said, well, it's time for lunch, I reckon. He was the greatest oyster eater that the world has ever seen. He was Muskrat Green. They sent him off to London town, the one near Wales. And this time what he had to eat was snails. Tastes like rubber's all he had to say, but he ate a record number of them anyway. He beat the best eater that the Brits could show, downing 2.3 pounds of escargot. He did it in 2 minutes and 43 seconds, and that got him in the Guinness Book of World Records. And back in Deal, they say Muskrat put that tiny tidewater town on the map. They made him honorary mayor of the town and stuck him in a limo and drove him all around. And now, he's up in heaven with all them harp pluckers, searching for the former world's fastest oyster shucker. He was the greatest oyster eater that the world has ever seen. He was Muskrat Green. Now, as a river keeper, you're very aware of how various elements of your environment are going. And in the Chesapeake Bay, one of the biggest issues we have is the submerged aquatic vegetation. And some places it's growing, some places it's shrinking, but it's always crucial to the health of the environment. That's where all the baby crabs and shrimp and fish hide away from the predators, oxygenates the water, cleans the water, does great things, but we've had to work to restore it in many places around the bay. But when I heard that phrase, subaquatic vegetation, submerged aquatic vegetation, I thought that's wrong as a poet. It just doesn't ring. If it's submerged, it's aquatic. But if you say subaquatic vegetation, there's music there. And what kind of music would it be but a tango? Let me see if I can get it right. The baby boomer generation has fostered overpopulation, waterfront property inflation, development deforestation. Deforestation leads to soil erosion that wreaks environmental devastation. Subaquatic vegetation. It's also known as SAV. And of course, you know this is a sing-along. So let's divide this ship's company into two crews. The starboard watch over on this side, sing with me, S-A-V, like this. S-A-V, S-A-V. Everybody, S-A-V, S-A-V. Keep that up now. S-A-V, subaquatic vegetation. S-A-V, subaquatic vegetation. S-A-V, subaquatic vegetation. S-A, all together now with feeling. S-A-V, 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 S-A-V. You comprehend the complications. Erosion brings about siltation, which covers up the vegetation, creating sunlight deprivation, muddies the water till the plants must desist their photosynthesis, yet it's a cause for consternation. For subaquatic vegetation, everybody now, S-A-V, 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 S-A-V. You comprehend the complications. Erosion brings about siltation, which covers up the vegetation, creating sunlight deprivation. Muddies the water till the plants must desist their photosynthesis, yet it's a cause for consternation. For subaquatic vegetation, everybody now, S-A-V, 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 S-A-V. Now listen for your information. It's not a hopeless situation. We must act without hesitation, enforcing soil conservation. Instead of tearing down our trees, we must needs plant some seeds. The subaquatic vegetation can be saved by reforestation. S-A-V, 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 S-A-V. It's not a tricky operation, engaging in reforestation. Just make a little excavation and stick a sprout of vegetation in. Thank you. Planting a little tree can be the solution to runoff pollution. It can be the one salvation for subaquatic vegetation. Everybody now, S-A-V, 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 S-A. One more time with feeling. S-A-V, 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 S. Let's hear an ovation for subaquatic vegetation. Hey! Thank you.
Dang, that's a way to start the evening. Yeah, that was awesome, and I do appreciate the work with the keeper groups too. So, very good. Next up, we have a friend of mine from Homer, Alaska. If you guys can welcome Nancy Lord, she's awesome.
for being here. That was great to hear from Jeff. So yeah, Meezie and I are both from the Kenai Peninsula in Alaska, and we also have a keeper organization, Cook Inlet Keeper. Okay, I'm going to start with this one. It's called A Poem in Defense of the Salmon Poem. The old poet complained to me one day, everyone new to Alaska writes the same damn cliche. They put pen to paper and write an ode all about salmon as though it's new gold. It's been done 1,000 times, gives us nothing new. It's unoriginal, it's tired and dull too. I must have turned red, knowing what I'd done. The first thing I'd written was about a salmon run. The creek had been full of humped backs and toothed jaws. To me, it was magic. I was completely in awe. But now I'd been told it was silly to think that art could be made from a fish that was pink. After that, I was cautious when writing of fish or anything my friend could so smartly dismiss. But many years later, a new thought emerged, and that old scolding was something I purged. It seemed to me then, and more strongly now, that salmon are worthy of all we avow. Everyone in Alaska who lives here or not should feel the same gladness about what we've got. Those salmon, those streams, the ocean that gives, all that good in Alaska that keeps us and lives. Everyone who partakes should write up an ode to a beautiful creature, be part of the fold. To ode means to sing, and what better to do to honor a fish in a way that is true. Celebrate without shame, with the joy that is pure. Let art be what it is. Let salmon endure. Okay, this next one is new. I just wrote it, and it's called Glass Balls for All. There is a fisherman I know who ran a tender to the west. He liked to skiff ashore to hunt for glass balls in the dunes. Who doesn't love to find such treasures, these artifacts of Japan's fishing? Recycled glass from sake bottles was hand-blown new and sealed airtight with buttons marked to show the maker. In decades past, they served good purpose. They kept those nets afloat. Along came cork and all those plastics to end them in the 40s, except for all the lost ones turning in the North Pacific gyres to sometimes sweep to shore. Though rare they are to find these days, the tender man in Bristol Bay was one to know and had the means to search above the beach where storms had pushed them by the hundreds well past the high tide marks. They lingered there, half sunk in swales like Easter eggs in nests of grass. The tender man cut buoy balls to turn them into bags. He picked those eggs and filled his bags. He carried them away. He took some to the Kenai River and tossed them from a boat. The dipnet fishers there were startled to find them floating past. They thought a sudden wave had worked them loose from somewhere in the turf. Took dozens more and dropped them from a plane. They floated then in Kachimak, surprises for their finders. Today, they sit on windowsills as conversation starters. What stories do their owners tell? Not this one, that's for sure. So my partner, the mentioned tender man there, who's in the audience tonight, We used to set on the west side of Cook Inlet for many years, and our neighbor was named George Hayden. He fished in Trading Bay since the 1940s and actually had a little hand-packed cannery there called the Trading Bay Cannery early on. But when we first knew him, he fished from a 30-foot wooden dory he built. He called it the Running W. I had written about his boat and so on in my book that's called Fish Camp, but for his purposes, I revised a passage. So this is called the Running W in memory of George Hayden. The Running W was even then old and, like George, unique in its mold. Its hull was built to cut water like a V, but doubled to W offered more stability. The deck laid above, the catch fell below, though salmon deserved that, to stay cool and out of the way until delivery at the end of the day. Built to work and take a beating, she'd nature's knees and plywood sheeting. All of her was stitched with twine. The workmanship was close to fine. The gunnels came from saplings split, smooth from lines and hands and grit. A coat of fiberglass, so right, once red and later orange bright. A special feature was the pipe hole. Moving anchors was the goal. A line passed through was winched around to raise by eye bolts from the ground those massive rocks, colossal sized for holding nets in rushing tides. We got to know this boat quite well. George helped us out, I'm here to tell. We crossed the inlet in rough seas, lifted anchors and moved trees. That workhorse boat, the big old brute, she earned her way and her repute. That first year at season's end, we walked to the beach, 4 hands to lend, to bring the Running W ashore with muscle and brain, the latter more. Come along pulled and log rollers rolled, the heavy boat creaked while we cajoled. We dug away sand and tossed away rocks. We cranked and we pushed and assembled some blocks, inch by inch up the beach with the water behind us. How far would we be when the night would come find us? But George had a way, another stage to the plan. With more ropes, blocks, and cables, stage 2 began. We cranked from an angle to lift up a side, then let her down gently, a far different ride. But before she came down, we fit underneath her a recycled treasure, a scavenge it were, a giant steel buoy, sufficiently round. This worked like a wheel to cover some ground. Still we cranked and we cranked to get to a ramp, to a dock, and at last, at day's end, to the camp, where she settled on down to await the next spring, to roll back to the beach with hope of some kings. We did this for years, helping George with his boat. We got smarter and faster and did it by rote. But a time came at last when she settled for good. As far as I know, she's still there in her hood, on the dock, at the camp, the buoy beneath her, the Running W, that boat. That's the end. I prefer her. So I am really a prose writer. I'm only a poet for Fisher Poets. So I'm going to read just the first 3 pages of a short story. It was published in a climate change anthology a couple of years ago. It takes place on a halibut fishing boat. It's called Come Help Me. On May 1, aboard the Morning Star, Yulia is learning the various meanings of May Day. In Russia, she knew it as a major holiday. In the Soviet days, it had meant speeches and parades in Red Square, and later in her time, it was a nicer day for celebrating spring and workers. In America, Peter is teaching her. It involves putting flowers in a basket and dancing around a pole with ribbons, and maybe too, depending on who you are, communist sympathizer or not, saying kind things about workers. But more importantly for them now, May Day is all one word and is what she must shout into the radio if the boat is on fire or sinking. She should shout it 3 times in a row and give the location. This is how you work the radio, Peter has shown her. This is the emergency locator beacon, and this is how you turn it on, although it should turn on automatically if it goes underwater. This is the emergency life raft, and this is where you release it. These are our survival suits. Now we put soap on the zippers. Now we practice getting into them. Gumby is a rubber man, yes, from a cartoon. No, hood now, zip all the way. Now we do it again, faster. He uses the timer on his big, complicated, good underwater watch. Now you are dead of hypothermia, he says, if she's too slow to zip or can't get her hair tucked into the hood. She is very confused, but no, May Day has nothing to do with spring or flowers or workers. It's French. Peter says, Venez Mayday, come help me. Yulia can barely imagine her other life, the one that's disappearing with every minute on the water and every mile from land. Only 2 days ago, just when finals week started, she'd sold her textbooks, tossed piles of papers into the trash, kissed her favorite microscope goodbye, and flown to Kodiak to meet Peter. Her master's degree in marine biology and the award she'd received for her thesis were happy achievements, but she didn't need the long robe and flat hat, nor so much hugging. She has a new job, sticking hooks into stinky herring, clipping the short lines onto the long line, watching the lines go down, and then 6 hours later, watching them come up, big white belly fish taking shape as they swing towards the surface. Maggie's clothesline, Peter says, like big white panties coming up, and it's for her to unpin them. Bigger than panties, maybe pillowcases and sheets. Who is Maggie? Peter doesn't know this. It's just an expression. Her happiness comes not just from big halibut that will make money for Peter and her. There's the rest to love, sky, waves, gulls with lonesome voices, some fish frying in a pan, a deck to scrub, a movie to watch and forget, mountains far away with snow. And Peter, of course, she wants to be with this man, Perpetua, engine oil on his hands and fish oil in the brain. Yulia is learning about the American enterprise system, quota shares that mean Peter can catch certain pounds of halibut in the part of the ocean called Area 3A. Enterprising is when you figure things out, like in science, but for more practical and personal reasons. Peter is always figuring things out, how to make something work, how to use mayonnaise instead of the eggs she somehow forgot at the store. She wants to be enterprising too, and now she's already learned how to run the hydraulics so that Peter can gaff the monster fish. When he was not mad about the eggs, he called her a natural at baiting hooks and snapping danions. She felt proud when he praised her good hands. She's not so confident about the knives. It's Peter's job to gut the fish, hers to pack the insides with ice. They will fill the hole this way. Yes, all the weight of the school year, all the effort she'd made for so long, it falls away until she is like one of the gulls herself, that one, sitting on the water, riding up and over a swell so lightly, like it is only feathers full of air. So, one more, a very short one, and it's by my partner, Ken Kastner. So this is Stripes to Stripes by Ken Kastner. I hatch like my brethren salmonids, attached to an orange opal of nutrition, and like all the others, my skin wears its camouflaging stripes. At sea, I brighten to silver and blue-green, capable even of passing as a sockeye. Silver bright, some call me in admiration. But as I return to my natal stream, I dress again in stripes, bruised purple and streaked in the yellows and greens of Devil's Club leaves overhanging my spawn. Born as a chum with a name that means marked, I come to my spent end as a painted and snaggle-toothed dog. Thank you all.
Thank you, Nancy. That was great. Next up, we have a buddy of mine. He hails from right here in Astoria, but he spent a lot of time in my neck of the woods, drifting in Cook Inlet, stealing my fish. So, this is Tom Hilton.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Astoria, Oregon. FisherPoets Gathering. I'm Tom Hilton. I'm from Uniontown, Astoria. I'm the son of a socialist Finn, and my dad was a Columbia River gill netter, and my mother was a Cowles Prairie Indian. I'm glad to say I'm adopted by those people, and they gave me this beautiful life that I'm going to share with you tonight. So my first poem I'm going to do tonight is called Uniontown Supreme Court. I wrote this about a group of men. They used to get together and have coffee. And these men trolled and dragged and crabbed and shrimped and gill netted the Columbia long before there was a bridge and long before there was, well, the way it is now. So this poem's dedicated to the men of the Uniontown Supreme Court. All that's left is legends. Names etched in a granite wall. Black and white photos for sale in the Maritime Museum store. Boats of wood, hands of steel, hearts of gold. All races, colors, and creeds, a man was valued by his word, his firm handshake, his deeds. White apron supermodels, grinning from ear to ear. Days were measured by seasons, not years. Tatted edges, faded yellow-brown, ripped, torn. Memories of the glory days when gill netting was born. Dilapidated docks, rotten pilings, broken tops beneath our tidal view, skeleton bones, partially submerged, floating homes. Lonely net racks, empty bluestone tanks, broken windows, moldy, musty, dusty, dank. Wooden corks, lead lines, little nets stripped clean of all their glory. No more mug-up, coffee time, just empty chairs waiting for stories. Court is no longer in session. Yesterday's myths, see-through, faded, transparent, not bitter, jaded. Today's monofilament tangle nets, Jesus box, deadliest catch drama, overstated, overrated prima donnas. If those pilings could talk, what tales would they weave? Would they be fortuitous of sport fishermen's greed? Countless stories. Work is our joy, fortunes made, love, families, togetherness, life, salmon, laughter, heartbreak, lost. Of butterflies and bow pickers, double enders, power scout, cash buyers and tenders, 4 bits a pound. Clifton, Brookfield, Altoona, Alderbrook, Upper Town, Uniontown, Salilo, where do they all go? A salmon culture, a menagerie of people, a colorful past, romanticized, plagiarized, and eulogized by people like me. Fishing is more than tradition, Governor. It's a religious ceremony. Ebbing current, tide shifts, surge of chain, pulling our nets, taking us under. These words bury my pain. Black and white photos, names etched in that granite wall. Let's not forget them, the true legends of fall. This mighty river, what it was back then, full of salmon, sturgeon, seiner, trollers, gill netters, cannery women, stomper, Astoria's fighting fishermen. The story is over, all the legends have died. Our eyes welled with wet, politicians lied. Last of my tears shed, obviously not cried. So if those pilings could talk, ask one how it was back then. It'll probably tell you those days are gone forever, kid, with the stroke of a pen. Thank you very much. As Meezie said, I grew up here, but I also spent my summers in Kenai, Alaska from 1977, and then I quit, and then I went back in 2013, 2014. I fished with my dad. He was an original contract fisherman here from Whitney, Fidalgo. They hired him to go up there and catch fish for him, and there was this guy, Harold Dovinsbeck, standing on the beach. He had a case of beer and a fifth of whiskey, and he said, hey boys, sell me your fish. And it was him and three other guys went with him. Abby Ihander, Eldon Corpola, and Bill Gunderson. And they were known as the Bunkhouse Gang. So my dad had this phrase, and his phrase was, one drift and we all go home. And when we would fish, the guys would be talking on the radio, and they'd say, oh, we're gonna run down. And my dad would say, no. Up, you gotta go up. That's where they are, that's where they're going. They're not going down, they're going up. So this is, because it's one drift and we all go home. I took some video in 1998. We sat on the beach for escapement. It was a brutal summer, and I walked around with a VHS camera and took video. And I had 6.5 hours of video, and my son took that video and condensed it into a 20-minute short film. And it's called 'Cause It's One Drift and We All Go Home, and that movie did the film circuit and stuff like that, and we did pretty well with it. It was quite a deal, but I had sent it to him when he was living in New York City, all the cassettes, and I sent it with some smoked salmon and some t-shirts, and the smoked salmon leaked all over everything. But thankfully it didn't mess up the video. So this is 'Cause It's One Drift. And I could tell you more to the story. Was I was sitting at a desk job in Portland, and my buddies are up in Kenai, and they were sending me messages, and they said, hey, Tom, this is what's going on. The fish are moving this way, and this is going this way, tide's going this way, and everything's that way. And I said, just go right over there, lay out. They almost sucked the boat. They had so many fish that day. So I'm a little bit emotional. I'll tell you after this, I'm done with this, but I'll tell you why. And so this is 'Cause It's One Drift and We All Go Home. Man, now that you've got your ticket, the weather will be great, the reds will be thick, just enough to keep the boat off the gear, hanging like grapes. The girls will be friendly, food will be delicious, jokes will be told, legends made, and chasing dogs is foolish. The cast is all gathered, new faces and old, greenhorns and legends, looking for the big score. From the Nilchik, Homer, and Halibut Cove, to the west side set netters and the girls on Fisherman's Road. They'll be counting down the minutes, throw the wooey ball, looking for bunches hitting and telling stories in the mess hall. 'Cause it's summertime in Alaska, along the peninsula, The Reds are running and jumping and finning their way home. They're running up, up, up the inlet. That's how they run in the land of milk and honey in the midnight sun. Maggots line that college hole bank. Pukers with full boats. The dippies are up to their neck in our wakes. An eagle flies alone. South wind blows. Pizza at Parada sows. Sun never sets. Baseball at Oilers Park. Drive down to North Beach. The boys belly up Kenai Joe's bar. The smell of blood, sweat, gurry. The gulls shuffle along the tin roof of the bunkhouse, hurry, squawking, talking, sharing a meal. No time to lick your wounds or let your bruises heal. Not so young anymore. No youthful zeal. Ice in the cooler, boats clean, windows washed. Crank up the tunes. Eric Hyde, it's your time, but we'll watch. No time for sleep, looking for jumpers. Radio crackles, the sound of squelch. Last sip of coffee, Mountain Dew belch. South 210, that's the heading. South end of the island, that's what we're betting. The Reds are laying along the edge of the bar. Last of the flood, high water down. Load the boat, head to town. Because it's one drift, and we all go home. East on the flood, west on the ebb, that's the rules to follow. Look for the jumpers, follow the seams, up, up, up the inlet, sunken net in your dreams. Because it's summertime in Alaska, and along the peninsula, the Reds are running and jumping and finning their way home. They're running up, up, up the inlet. That's how they run in the land of milk and honey and the midnight sun. So I'm going to have a moment of realness here. Right before I came in here at 5:30, I just got a text that said one of my good friends died of a heart attack. 5:30 this evening. So kind of a tough gig there. Come up here and do this. I built a crab company inside Pier 39. My buddy Floyd Hookham. And the guy I mentioned in the boat, Eric Hyde, is the guy who passed away. So I think we should have a moment of silence for this gentleman because he served our country in the United States Army and Special Forces and did a bunch of stuff, helped make our world a great place. And he did a lot of wonderful stuff for our community right here in Astoria. So maybe let's give Eric a moment of silence. This is a poem written by my good friend Hillel Wright. There's an island up north out in Queen Charlotte Sound that the trollers know well when they're Prince Rupert bound. When the easterly gale scuds the clouds across the sun and the whitecaps come to Carson, God's pocket they run. Oh, the entrance is narrow and the anchorage is deep. Boats wrapped up together while the deckhands doesn't sleep. And the skipper drinks coffee as the cabin lights burn. And the dreams of tomorrow, God's pocket astern. The fishing drags on through the calm and the storm. And the tonnage adds up as the crews dream of home. When the season is over, the fish ice below. When the darkness falls early, to God's pocket they go. Oh, the entrance is narrow and the anchorage is deep. Boats wrapped up together while the deckhands do sleep. And the skipper drinks coffee as the cabin light burns. And he dreams of tomorrow, God pocket astern. Then up in the morning, at the first light of dawn, across the wide channel, the trollers have gone. The island lie lonely with the rocks in the wind. God's pocket remembers all the sailors with him. And now I want to do something fun. This gentleman that got on here earlier this evening, he had y'all singing and stuff. I got this nickname, and I've had this nickname for a long time. And I coached high school basketball at Tualatin, and when I walked around the track one time at a high school football game, everybody started chanting, "Time bomb tom, time bomb tom, time bomb tom." Come on, let me hear you say it. Gosh, man. What are you guys? Come on. Yep, that's right. Time bomb Tom. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
That was a good first hour here. So we're going to take a quick break. Before we do, I just want to remind you guys about the poetry contest. So you have until about 10 o'clock tomorrow, I believe. Rules are no more than 30 seconds. Include the words full moon. The first and last lines are the same but different. You can interpret that. Include 3 Bodhi prepositions, which are locator words such as abeam, astern, aboard, aft, to starboard, or to port. So you guys can try and come up with something. You don't have to be a Fisher poet. Anyone with a button can enter, and that will be at the end of the evening tomorrow after all the performances. So good luck with that, and we'll be back here in just a few.
We're here at the FisherPoets Gathering today, and I'm talking with Britt, who's a second-time attendee. Britt, where'd you come in from for the gathering?
I'm from Woodburn, Oregon.
How many times have you come for the FisherPoets Gathering?
This is my second year attending.
So you like it, so you thought it was worth a repeat performance. Do you see making this an annual event?
Definitely, yeah. Love the community here and the small town event kind of thing. It's very cool.
So what was your favorite part so far?
Not Able Brewing Company. Astoria Brewing Company. They put on a really good show last night, and I think I'll be back there today for round 2 of some storytelling.
Super, Britt. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.